The Force is light and full of shadows.
Before we dive in, check the link in the description if you want exclusive timelines, members-only videos you won't find on YouTube, all on our Patreon. The control room smells of burning metal and old fear. Vader moves through it without hurrying. Behind him, down the corridor, down the stairs, across the volcanic stone floors of this facility, carved into Mustafar's crust, the Separatist Council is dead. Newt Gunray, Poggle the Lesser, Shu Mai, the others. He didn't count them. He didn't need to. He felt each life extinguished through the Force the way a man feels candles going out in a room he's already left. The lava outside presses orange light through every viewport. It paints the consoles in fire colors. It paints him the same way. He sits. The master signal relay terminal is exactly where Sidious told him it would be. Of course it is. Palpatine has known the location of every switch in this war for 20 years. He built them. He hid them inside an enemy government the way a surgeon hides a clamp inside a patient, designed to be removed at precisely the right moment, leaving nothing behind but the scar. Vader sets both hands on the console. He is not here to flip the switch. The Confederate Central Command Cortex is not a small thing. It is not a program running on a single ship. It is a living architecture. A nervous system grown across a decade of war, threaded through every droid brain in every theater of every engagement the Confederacy ever fought. Geonosian engineers built the skeleton. Techno-Union contractors built the musculature. Palpatine, quietly, invisibly, built the kill switch into the brainstem. Vader feels all of it the moment he makes contact. Not the way a slicer would feel it, not as data, not as code scrolling across a screen. He feels it the way he feels a person standing behind him in a dark room. Presence, weight, architecture made almost biological by sheer scale. Trillions of connected nodes, each one a droid brain processing targeting data, movement commands, sensor feeds, an ocean of artificial cognition, all routed through a single master relay that is, right now, sitting dormant under his fingertips, waiting for him to send the command Palpatine built it to receive. One word, one authorization string. Lights out across the galaxy. He doesn't send it. The backdoor Palpatine constructed is elegant. He will give the old man that much. A one-way channel, right access only, designed with the assumption that no one who ever touched it would be standing here thinking about anything other than using it exactly as intended. Why would they? The authorization codes themselves are Council tier. And the Council is dead. Vader killed them 14 minutes ago. Which means the civilian checks on this network, the legal architecture that would theoretically require a quorum vote to restructure Confederate military command, died with them. He is not just a man with a key. He is a man standing alone in a room full of open doors, and the architect is on the other side of the galaxy waiting for a sound that isn't going to come. Vader begins to work. He doesn't type. His hands rest on the input surface and he reaches through them. Through the console, through the relay hardware, through the signal chain, with the Force. Feeling the architecture the way he once felt the inside of a hyperdrive motivator as a 9-year-old on Tatooine. Running his fingers along components in the dark until the shape of the problem made itself known. This is the same. The scale is different. The principle is identical. There, the primary command hierarchy node. Authentication layer. Biometric lock. Council cipher. The Council cipher is a dead language now. He dissolves it the way water dissolves salt, not by force, by simply occupying the space it used to fill. The authentication layer takes longer. It takes 4 minutes and 11 seconds. And during those 4 minutes and 11 seconds, anyone on Coruscant who thought to look at the Separatist signal network would see something anomalous. A dormant relay burning active power at a strange frequency, suggesting the shutdown command was received but not transmitted. An irregularity. A flicker. He does not allow himself to rush. Rushing is how you trigger the payload by accident. Rushing is how you send lights out across 1 trillion droid brains before you've finished rewriting whose hand is on the light switch. He works. He peels the authentication layer back and finds, underneath it, the raw command hierarchy, the pure architecture Geonosian engineers designed before Palpatine ever touched it. Before the back door. Before the war. A Confederate military chain of command with the top of the pyramid simply empty, waiting for authorization credentials to tell it who the Supreme Commander is. The answer, until 12 minutes ago, was a council of 9. Now it is a question. Vader answers it. He writes his own biometric signature into the apex node. His force resonance, his heartbeat, his specific electromagnetic signature, the same biological constants that make him uniquely himself in the Force, encrypted into a personal cipher that does not exist anywhere in Palpatine's files, because he generated it 3 minutes ago from the raw mathematics of his own nervous system. The cortex accepts it. Not instantly. There is a processing pause, a full 7 seconds where the architecture evaluates the new credentials against the authentication framework, and decides whether to comply or reject. 7 seconds is a long time when you are sitting alone in a burning facility on a lava planet, with the Emperor's eyes presumably somewhere in the direction of this relay, waiting for a signal. Then, the cortex accepts it. The sensation through the Force is enormous. It is not like flipping a switch. It is like a river reversing. Vader feels the acknowledgement signal propagate outward from the relay in every direction simultaneously, faster than light. Threading through the hyperspace comm relays the Confederacy spent a decade building, and at the far end of every thread, a droid brain receives not a shutdown payload, but a reauthorization ping. New commander recognized. Awaiting orders. New commander recognized. Awaiting orders. Across Geonosis. Across Felucia. Across the Foundry worlds and the contested systems, and the patrol routes, and the garrison stations, and the debris fields of 100 battles. In the holds of droid control ships parked in orbit above planets whose names he barely remembers. In the sensor arrays of vulture droids, circling in holding patterns. Waiting for a command that never came from a council that no longer exists. New commander recognized. He doesn't see the visual change. He's on Mustafar, in a room with no windows facing the relevant direction. But he knows it from the cortex's feedback, the signature color cycling through the optical recognition arrays. Every droid's target classification system rebooting and reinitializing under new command parameters. Sith yellow. His choice, made in the same 3 minutes he spent generating the cipher. It required 3 keystrokes. Palpatine gave him a door meant to close. He walked through it and changed the locks. Vader sits back. The lava outside hasn't changed. The burning metal smell hasn't changed. The bodies down the corridor haven't changed. Mustafar itself is indifferent. A planet that has been killing things since before the Republic existed, and will keep killing things long after whatever comes next has finished burning. He opens a channel on the facility's comm array. Droid frequency. The signal finds the nearest Separatist picket vessel in Mustafar's orbit. A Recusant-class destroyer that has been sitting dark and silent while its masters met in council below, and it responds. Immediately, Lord Vader. The ship's droid command system has already parsed the new command hierarchy. Its voice is flat, mechanical, without inflection. The fleet awaits your orders. He looks at the viewport. At the lava. At the reflection of his own mask in the transparisteel, orange-lit, motionless, on Coruscant. In the Senate building, Palpatine is waiting for a silence that confirms his victory. The Clone War's over. The Jedi gone. The droid armies dark. 20 years of manipulation crystallizing into exactly the empire he designed. He is probably already composing the speech. The silence he is waiting for is not going to come. Hold position, Vader says. Transmit nothing. Receive nothing from Coruscant. Jam all outgoing signals from this system until I give the order to lift the blackout. Confirmed. He stands. He has perhaps 2 hours before Palpatine realizes the signal never fired. Perhaps less. Intelligence agencies are paranoid by design, and the new Empire's intelligence apparatus, hastily rebranded from the Republic's, will notice the anomaly in the Separatist network faster than a loyal servant would. 2 hours. He walks back toward the corridor. Toward the bodies. Toward the landing platform where Padam's ship is sitting. And Padam is sitting inside it. And she does not yet know that everything has changed again. He has a great deal to tell her. He has almost no idea where to begin. The landing platform is a shelf of black rock jutting from the facility's eastern face. Below it, Nothing. 100 meters of open air above a lava river, moving slow and enormous, orange-white at the center where the heat is absolute. Cooling to black crust at the edges where the rock is trying to become itself again. The heat comes up in waves. It distorts the air above the platform into something almost liquid. Padme's skiff sits where he left it. Vader walks toward it without hurrying. Behind him the facility hums, the relay still processing, the cortex still propagating his reauthorization signal outward through hyperspace comm chains he can feel dimly through the Force, like a vibration through the floor of a very large building. Trillions of acknowledgement pings, each one microscopic, collectively enormous. The sensation is not unpleasant. It is something close to the feeling of dropping a stone into still water and watching the rings expand until they touch every shore. He is 20 meters from the skiff when the ramp descends. He knows it before he sees the figure at the top of it. The Force announces Obi-Wan Kenobi the way it always has. Warmth. Discipline. The particular luminous quality of a man who has spent 40 years in honest communion with something larger than himself. There is grief in it today. Fresh grief. The kind that hasn't had time to calcify into something manageable. Obi-Wan steps down the ramp. He is wearing the same robes he's worn for 20 years. His face, when he turns and sees who is standing on the platform, does something complicated. The grief is still there. Now there is something else underneath it. A desperate, searching quality. The look of a man who came here inside a ship he had no permission to board, and is recalibrating the situation in real time. Anakin, he says. Not Vader. Not Lord Vader. Anakin. Vader lets the silence sit for 3 full seconds before he responds. Master, he says, and his voice through the vocoder is even, uninflected, giving nothing away. Obi-Wan's eyes move to the facility entrance, to the dark corridor beyond. He has already read the situation. He is too good a general not to. He knows what happened in there. He can probably feel it through the Force the way Vader can feel him. The absence of 9 life signatures where 9 life signatures should be. What have you done? Obi-Wan asks. What I was sent here to do, Vader says. And something else. Obi-Wan steps forward. Vader does not move. He watches his former master cover half the distance between them and stop, studying him, the way Obi-Wan has always studied him, carefully, completely, with the particular attention of a man who spent 15 years trying to understand something he was never quite able to fully reach. The signal, Obi-Wan says slowly. Something is working behind his eyes. The Separatist armies, they should have gone dark by now. Palpatine was expecting. He stops. Recalibrates again. Faster this time. You didn't send it. No, Anakin. And now there is something urgent in it. Almost desperate. What you're describing, what you've done. This isn't. You cannot control a trillion. I already do. The words fall between them like dropped metal. Simple, declarative. Not a boast. A report. Obi-Wan stares at him. Then, and this is the thing that makes Vader's chest do something he doesn't have language for anymore. Obi-Wan's hand moves to his lightsaber. Not drawing it. Just touching it. The unconscious reflex of a man whose mind has arrived somewhere his body already knew was coming. I'm not going to fight you. Obi-Wan says. Whether he's saying it to Vader or to himself is not entirely clear. No. Vader agrees. You're not. He does not raise his hand. He does not ignite his saber. He touches the Force and sends 2 words down the command architecture he finished building 11 minutes ago, and the response is immediate. The sound comes first. The rolling electromagnetic hum of droidica deflector shields cycling up, a frequency so specific it has its own entry in Republic tactical manuals under the heading Auditory Identification of Engagement-Ready Separatist Heavy Weapons Platforms. Then the servo whine of Magna Guard electrostaff actuators initializing, the hydraulic percussion of IG-100 chassis weight shifting from standby to combat ready. They come around the facility's eastern wall. 2 droidicas in their rolling configuration, unfolding as they clear the corner into shooter's stance, shield bubbles shimmering into visibility in the heat-warped air. 4 Magna Guards behind them, moving in the fluid, slightly wrong gait of combat chassis designed to mimic human movement without quite achieving it. Optical sensors, Sith yellow. They form a perimeter around Obi-Wan with the patient, geometric precision of machines that have no concept of hesitation. Obi-Wan looks at them. He looks at Vader. He ignites his lightsaber, the blue blade a cold, clean color against the orange of the lava below, and takes his stance, and for one moment he is exactly what he has always been, the best of them, composed at the edge of impossible odds, refusing to look afraid even when the math is obvious. The math is obvious. 2 droidicas. 4 Magna Guards. 1 Jedi Master without reinforcement, without extraction, without the element of surprise that might have let him neutralize one threat before the others responded. The droidicas alone, shielded, would take a sustained saber assault he cannot sustain while 4 IG-100 Electrostaff platforms are moving on his flanks. Vader watches him work through it. The calculation is fast. Obi-Wan has always been faster in his mind than he appears. He watches his master's weight shift fractionally, the adjustment of a man who was considering one option and has moved to the next one. And the next. There is no option that ends with him on a ship leaving this platform. Don't, Vader says. Obi-Wan looks at him. I need you alive, Vader says. That is not a threat. It is the reason they have not fired. The blue lightsaber hums. Obi-Wan doesn't lower it. You were my brother, he says, and his voice is steady. Because Obi-Wan Kenobi's voice is always steady when his heart is breaking, it's one of the things Vader has never been able to decide whether to admire or resent. I would have died for you. I know, Vader says. Then tell me, whatever you're building, whatever you think comes next, is she part of it? Is Padme? She is safe. The words come without consideration, without strategy. They are simply true, and the truth moves faster than his discipline. She is on the ship. She is unharmed. Whatever else you think I am now, she is safe. Something moves across Obi-Wan's face. The lightsaber doesn't waver, but something in the body holding it does. And if I come with you, he says carefully. Willingly, what happens? You live, Vader says. You remain with her. You are not a prisoner in any meaningful sense. You are a complication I haven't solved yet, and keeping you close is simpler than the alternative. The alternative being. Vader says nothing. He doesn't need to. The lightsaber goes out. The blue blade folds back into the hilt with a sound like an exhaled breath. And Obi-Wan clips it back to his belt with steady hands and stands there in the heat and the orange light looking at Vader the way you look at something you love, that has become something you no longer recognize. All right, he says quietly. All right. Vader gestures toward the skiff. The Magna Guards part to create a path. Obi-Wan walks it without looking at them. Without looking at Vader. Looking at nothing in particular. The studied neutral expression of a man choosing not to let the people watching him see the specific shape of his grief. He reaches the skiff's ramp and pauses with one hand on the frame. She doesn't know yet, he says. Not a question. No. She's going to. He stops. There is no useful ending to that sentence. She's going to need time. Yes, Vader says. So will you. Obi-Wan looks at him for a long moment. Then he goes inside. Vader stands on the platform for another few seconds. Below him the lava moves, slow and indifferent, carrying heat from the planet's core toward some distant place where it will cool into rock and pretend it was never anything else. He follows Obi-Wan up the ramp. The facility burns behind him. He doesn't look back. The Senate Rotunda is full of light. 10,000 delegates in their floating pods. The curved walls of the chamber rising 100 meters overhead. The Republic insignia still visible on the banners that someone will need to replace with something else. All of it lit for ceremony, for triumph, for the specific theatrical grandeur that Palpatine has always understood is not decoration, but architecture. You build the room first. Then, you build the moment inside it. The moment becomes memory. The memory becomes history. He has been building this room for 20 years. He stands at the central podium in his new chancellor's robes, the ones that will become Emperor's robes before the day is finished, and he is mid-sentence when the aide appears at the edge of his peripheral vision. Not walking. Moving the way people move when they are terrified of the message they are carrying. Palpatine does not look at him. He finishes his sentence. He lets the chamber respond. And it does respond. The accumulated weight of 10,000 relieved, grateful, war-exhausted beings expressing itself in sound. He built this moment too. The exhaustion. The relief. The gratitude. 2 decades of precise, patient engineering producing this exact emotional state in this exact room on this exact day. He lets the applause run for 4 seconds. Then he steps back from the podium and turns to the aide with an expression of patient inquiry that has nothing behind it whatsoever. The aide's name is Lieutenant Yalt. He is 26 years old, recently transferred from Republic Intelligence to the newly designated Imperial Intelligence Apparatus, and he has been in his current posting for 11 days. He will remember this conversation for the rest of his life, however long that turns out to be. Emperor, he says, and his voice only breaks on the second syllable. There is a report from the Signal Monitoring Division. The Confederate Master Relay on Mustafar, yes, Palpatine says pleasantly. The shutdown payload was not transmitted, sir. The relay went active approximately 40 minutes ago and has remained active. The analysts are describing it as a restructured signal, not the payload. Something different. Palpatine looks at him for a moment. Different, he repeats. The Separatist fleet that was in Mustafar orbit, sir. The Recusant-class destroyer on picket duty. It has not stood down. It is maintaining position with active shields, sir, and we are receiving reports from the Ryloth Theater, from Felucia, from the Christophsis garrison. The droid armies have not deactivated. They are standing by. The analysts say it looks like they are waiting for orders. Palpatine says nothing. The applause behind him is dying down. The delegates are beginning to notice that their new emperor has stepped away from the podium and is having a quiet conversation with an aide and has not returned. The chamber is producing the particular uncertain murmur of 10,000 people recalibrating their emotional state to match an authority figure whose emotional state they cannot read. Who else has seen this report? Palpatine asks. The monitoring division chief, sir, myself, the 2 analysts who flagged it. Keep it that way. Still pleasant. Return to your station. You will speak to no one about this until I contact you. Lieutenant Yalt leaves quickly. He is perspicacious enough to understand that leaving quickly is the correct response. Palpatine returns to the podium. He finishes the speech, every word of it. The applause at the end is larger than the applause in the middle, because he builds his sentences the way he builds everything. Each element positioned to make the next one land harder. The conclusion inevitable, the audience certain they have witnessed something historic. They simply don't know which part. He exits the chamber through the private corridor behind the speaker's platform, and the moment the door closes behind him, the pleasantness leaves his face the way water leaves a glass that's been set down too hard. What replaces it is not rage. Not yet. Rage is what lesser men feel when they are surprised. What moves through Palpatine in the private corridor is something colder and more structural, a rapid, systematic dismantling of assumptions. A mind that has spent 6 decades constructing contingencies now running through them at speed, finding the specific place where the architecture has failed. The relay did not fire. He sent Vader to close a door, and Vader walked through it and changed the locks. For 4 seconds, walking down the corridor, he does not think about Vader specifically. He thinks about the mechanism. The back door was right access, not red access. A one-way channel. He never installed the ability to monitor what someone did with the authorization codes once they had them, because the assumption of the design was that the only thing those codes could do was fire the payload. The payload was the only command structure built into the channel. Except the payload, at its core, was access to the apex node of the Confederate command hierarchy. And Vader, who built a protocol droid from salvage parts at 9 years old. who could feel the inside of a hyperdrive through the Force, who spent 15 years maintaining and modifying his own ships and armor and equipment because he trusted no one else to do it correctly, Vader apparently looked at a door designed to close and saw, instead, a door. 4 seconds. Then Palpatine thinks about Vader. He is alone in his private office when the second report arrives. He reads it himself, standing at his desk, because he has sent everyone out. The Invisible Hand, Grievous's former flagship, now operating under new Confederate command authority, has just dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Quat system. It is not alone. 3 additional Providence-class dreadnoughts have emerged from hyperspace at Sluis Van. A full Confederate carrier group, 12 vessels, is holding position at Bothawi in what any competent military analyst will immediately recognize as a choke point. Not raids. Not accidents. Not confused droid battalions acting on old standing orders. Coordinated hyperspace jumps. Simultaneous, executed against Republic shipyards. His shipyards. Palpatine sets the report down. He has built contingencies for the Jedi. He has built contingencies for Senate resistance, for clone commander insubordination, for the specific scenario where Order 66 only partially succeeded. He has thought about a surviving Jedi acquiring the droid army. He thought about it and dismissed it. Because no surviving Jedi would know the authorization codes. And the codes died with the Council. He never built a contingency for Vader. The fact of this sits in his chest like a coal. Not panic. He does not panic. He has never panicked in his life. Because panic requires the belief that the situation cannot be recovered, and he does not hold that belief. He has come back from worse. He has engineered comebacks from positions that looked, to lesser minds, like absolute defeat. But he did not account for Vader. He thought he knew Vader. He thought Vader was grief and rage and desperate devotion wrapped in enough power to be useful, fundamentally reactive, fundamentally dependent. A weapon that needed a hand to hold it. He was not wrong about the grief. He was not wrong about the rage. He was catastrophically wrong about the dependency. Vader is not a weapon that needs a hand to hold it. He is a weapon that spent 2 decades watching how the hand worked. Palpatine sits down slowly. He places both hands flat on the desk and looks at them. The veined, ancient hands that have moved governments and killed senators and shaped 20 years of galactic history through the sheer, grinding patience of a man who was always willing to wait longer than anyone else. He thinks about what he has and what he needs. The clone army, effective, loyal, operating at full strength. The skeleton Imperial Navy, undermanned, underbuilt, but operational. The Senate, politically consolidated, legally bound to the new imperial framework. The core industrial worlds, Quat, Corellia, Fondor, still inside his control, still producing. Against this, 1 trillion droid units, every Separatist fleet and garrison and foundry world, the full industrial capacity of the Confederacy of Independent Systems, and Anakin Skywalker's mind running it. He opens a comm channel to Admiral Tarkin. Grand Moff, he says, and his voice is its normal self, measured, precise, carrying its usual undertone of absolute certainty. I need the Coruscant defensive perimeter at full readiness within the hour. No public announcement. Frame it as a scheduled exercise. A pause. Then Tarkin's careful, educated voice. Of course. My Emperor. May I ask, is there a specific threat we are responding to? Palpatine considers the question. Yes, he says. He closes the channel without elaborating. Outside his window, Coruscant stretches in every direction. The Eternal City, 200 levels deep, 1 trillion inhabitants, the beating heart of galactic civilization for 1,000 years. He has held this city in his hands for 2 decades. He looks at it now the way a man looks at something valuable he has just realized is standing too close to the edge. He begins to plan. Raxus is not a beautiful planet. It was once. The historical records say green, temperate, a world of rolling hills and moderate climate that the Confederacy chose as its capital for practical reasons, and then accidentally made meaningful through sheer duration. 10 years of Senate sessions and council meetings and propaganda broadcasts had given it the particular weight of a place where decisions happened. The hills are still there. The climate is still moderate, but the city that grew up around the Confederate Parliament building has the look of something that expanded faster than anyone planned for. Towers that don't quite match. Transit infrastructure visibly improvised, the whole sprawling thing held together by bureaucratic momentum and the specific stubbornness of a government that needed to prove it existed. Vader walks through the Parliament chamber and finds it exactly as he expected. Empty, quiet, the kind of quiet that accumulates in rooms where important people used to be. The council members who governed from this building are dead. The civilian officials who staffed it scattered the moment Order 66 began, and the Republic's clone forces pushed their final offensives. What remains is the building itself, high ceilings, long windows, the Confederate crest on every surface and the particular way of governments that needed to remind themselves constantly of their own legitimacy. And several hundred battle droids, standing in standby mode along the walls, waiting, optical sensors cycling Sith yellow in the dimness. His droids. He walks to the head of the council table and stands there for a moment, looking at the empty chairs, and thinks about what it means to inherit the furniture of a dead cause, and decide to use it for something else. Padme is 2 rooms away. He is aware of her the way he is always aware of her. A specific warmth in the Force, distinct and immediately recognizable. The way a particular star is recognizable even in a crowded sky. She has been 2 rooms away, or 2 corridors away, or 2 decks away on the ship that brought them here, for the 31 hours since Mustafar. Close enough to feel. Not close enough to reach without crossing a distance that is not measured in meters. She has not asked to see him. Obi-Wan has also not asked to see him, but Obi-Wan's silence has a different quality. The studied, patient silence of a man gathering himself before a conversation he knows he cannot avoid. Padme's silence has the quality of someone looking directly at a thing and working out whether they can survive it. He gives them both what time he can afford. He cannot afford much. The first briefing begins at 0600 local time. Vader sits at the head of the council table, and around it, in the chairs that Newt Gunray and Poggle the Lesser and the others occupied before he killed them, sit the people who are going to run the thing he has taken. They are not what anyone would have expected. Admiral Utu, formerly of the Confederacy's Corellian Theater Command. She surrendered to Republic forces 8 months ago, was held in a processing facility on Bothawui, and has spent 8 months watching clone troopers mismanage the logistics of her captured fleet. When Vader's droids opened her cell 14 hours ago, and a Magna Guard handed her a datapad with his operational plans on it, she read the whole thing before she said a single word. Then she said, "The Quat strike is too early. We need the foundries at Geonosis running at full capacity before we commit to fleet engagements at the core." Vader gave her command of the fleet. Beside her, Tech Marin, a Neimoidian shipping administrator who managed the Trade Federation's Eastern logistics networks, and who has the particular gift, rare in any species, of being able to look at a supply chain and see exactly where it will break, before it breaks. He is not a military man. He is afraid of loud noises and unfamiliar food, and most situations involving personal risk. He is, for the purposes of building an operational war economy out of the scattered industrial capacity of a losing government, exactly what Vader needs. 3 others. An engineer. A communications specialist. A former Republic intelligence analyst who defected to the Confederacy 2 years ago for reasons she has declined to fully explain, and which Vader has declined to fully investigate, because her work since then has been accurate, and that is sufficient. He looks at them across the council table. They look back at him. Several of them are clearly uncertain whether this is the kind of meeting where they are allowed to speak without being spoken to first. "Tell me what we have," Vader says. What they have is simultaneously more and less than he expected. The droid armies are intact. Fully intact, the shutdown payload never fired, which means every unit that was operational at the moment he seized the Cortex is still operational now, still in position, still drawing power from local sources or droid control ships. Tech Marin puts the number at approximately 1.2 trillion active combat units across all theaters. The figure sits in the room like a piece of furniture no one knows what to do with. The foundries are running. Geonosis, Metalorn, Hippori, the big manufacturing worlds are producing at wartime capacity, have been for years, And the civilian infrastructure of those worlds is intact because clone forces never had the numbers to meaningfully occupy them. They disrupted production, raided supply lines, destroyed finished units in transit. They never stopped the foundries. The fleet is in better shape than the Republic's intelligence assessment suggested. Admiral Utu delivers this information with the flat affect of someone who spent 8 months listening to Republic analysts describe her former command as nearly neutralized and has decided not to be visibly smug about how wrong they were. 62% of the Confederate fleet is operational. Another 20% is repairable within 6 weeks. The remaining 18% is genuinely gone, destroyed in engagements, not just damaged. Against this, what Palpatine has. Vader already knows the numbers. He spent the transit from Mustafar going through every piece of Confederate intelligence on the Republic's military strength, and the picture it paints is of an empire in its first week of existence that has not yet built what it will need to win a sustained war. The clone army is effective but finite, production is biological and slow, and the Kaminoan facilities are a single point of failure. The Imperial Navy is the former Republic Navy, which was already stretched thin by 3 years of conflict, and the consolidation process is producing the specific kind of institutional chaos that happens when a military apparatus is asked to change its command structure, its insignia, its chain of authority, and its operational doctrine simultaneously. The early window is his. He knows this. He knows it with the same cold precision that tells him the window will close, that given 6 months, a year, the empire will consolidate and conscript and industrialize, and the advantage will shrink to something that requires a different kind of war. He has 6 months to end this before it becomes the kind of conflict that grinds planets into nothing and leaves whatever survives too broken to be worth having. He says none of this to the people around the table. Instead, he listens. He asks specific questions. He corrects 3 tactical assumptions that Admiral Utu's staff has made in the preliminary strike plans. He restructures Tech Marin's production prioritization schedule to front-load destroyer output over infantry units, because the war is going to be decided in space and ground forces can be redirected to occupation once that's settled. The briefing runs 4 hours. Afterward, when the others have gone, he stands at the chamber's long window and looks at the Raxus skyline. He is the head of a government. He has inherited a military, an industrial base, a diplomatic network, a bureaucracy. He is the iron sovereign of a dead cause he is trying to make into something that wasn't what the cause intended, and isn't yet what he needs it to become. 1 trillion droids are waiting for his orders. Not one of them will ask him if he is all right. Not one of them will notice the way he stands at this window, the particular stillness of a man who has organized his grief into a shape that can function, that can sit at a table and make decisions and restructure supply chains and win a war, and who is aware, in the quiet moments between the decisions, that organization is not resolution, and function is not healing. And the war he is most afraid of losing is not the one he's planning to fight. He turns from the window. There is a droid waiting at the chamber door. It has a datapad. Admiral Utu has updated the Quat timeline. He takes the datapad. He reads it. He keeps working. The Battle of Quat begins before dawn. Not Quat's dawn. The planet has one. A slow gray brightening over the shipyard superstructure that the engineers who built this place never bothered to design around because the work never stopped for daylight anyway. The battle begins in the absolute dark of space above the planet's northern hemisphere, where the shipyard's construction frames extend outward from the orbital ring like ribs. Half-built star destroyers hanging between them in various stages of completion, skeletal and enormous, the Empire's future suspended in vacuum waiting to become itself. The Confederate vanguard drops out of hyperspace at 0340. 47 vessels. 2 Providence-class dreadnoughts leading, 15 Munificent-class frigates in a staggered attack formation behind them. The rest a mix of support craft and the refitted carriers Admiral Utu spent 3 weeks arguing were more valuable than additional destroyer tonnage, and who has now been proven correct in the most direct way available. The Imperial Picket Force has 9 ships. Commander Dessen Arl sees it on his tactical display and does the math in the time it takes to draw a breath. He is 43 years old, a Republic Navy man for 22 of those years, recently redesignated Imperial Navy without any of the underlying reality of his posting changing in the slightest. Same ship, same crew, Same sector responsibility. New insignia on the hull, and new paperwork to file with a different office on Coruscant. He is a competent officer. He is not, by his own honest assessment, a brilliant one. He is the kind of commander who holds the line. He intends to hold it. General quarters, he says. All weapons to full power. Get me a signal to Coruscant. His comms officer looks up. Sir, they're jamming the hyperspace relay. We can't. Short range. Whatever ships are in system. Anyone who can receive. Yes, sir, the Confederate vanguard is already moving into firing range. At this distance, on his display, the Providence dreadnoughts look almost abstract. Geometric shapes, threat indicators, vectors. He knows what they actually are. He has fought these ships for 3 years. Fire, he says. The 9 Imperial ships fight. This needs to be said plainly, without decoration, because it is the truth, and the truth matters even when the outcome doesn't change. They fight hard, and they fight well, and Commander Arl spends 41 minutes doing things with 9 ships that the Confederate tactical analysis later models as requiring 14. He concentrates his fire on the lead munificent frigates, understanding that the Providence dreadnoughts are beyond his ability to mission kill, but that degrading the fire support screen might preserve the shipyard's construction frames long enough for something useful to happen. The construction frames burn anyway. Not all of them. 6 of the 9 survive the engagement intact, which Admiral Utu later characterizes as a better outcome than she planned for. 3 frames go dark, the half-built Star Destroyers inside them either destroyed outright or venting atmosphere into vacuum, the Empire's future interrupted at the skeleton stage. Commander Arl's ship, the Fortitude, takes 2 direct hits from the lead Providence in the engagement's 29th minute. The first hit takes out his port shield generator. The second takes out the bridge. He doesn't survive the second hit. Vader will read the after-action report 7 hours later, and will note, in the margin of the tactical assessment, 2 words, good officer. He will not elaborate. He does not think elaboration is necessary. The Battle of Sluice Van happens simultaneously, and ends faster. Sluice Van is a repair and refit facility rather than a construction yard. The distinction matters because the Confederate strike there isn't trying to destroy Finnish ships, it's trying to destroy the Empire's ability to repair damaged ones, which Admiral Utu correctly identified as the more consequential long-term target. A fleet that can't be repaired degrades engagement by engagement. The clone army doesn't have that problem because biological soldiers heal, warships don't. 8 Confederate vessels. 17 minutes. The Sluice Van garrison manages to destroy 1 frigate before the facility's defense grid goes dark. The repair docks are intact. They are now, as of 0437, operating under Confederate authority and beginning the process of routing the 30% of the Confederate fleet that Admiral Utu designated as repair priority through a facility that was, until this morning, fixing the ships of the people they've been fighting. This is the thing Vader understood about the early window that his new staff took longer to grasp. It is not about destruction. Destruction is available in unlimited quantities on both sides. The war is about conversion, taking the infrastructure his enemy needs to sustain a long campaign and making it his infrastructure instead, so that the longer the war goes, the more the arithmetic favors him rather than Palpatine. The Empire can build new ships eventually. It cannot build new shipyards in less than years. He is not planning to give it years. On Coruscant, the reports arrive in sequence. Palpatine reads them standing. He has been awake since the first alert came in at 0347, and he will not sleep today, and he knows it, and has already decided not to waste energy on the wish that things were otherwise. He reads each report, sets it down, reads the next one. Quat. 3 construction frames destroyed, 6 intact but now under Confederate interdiction. The picket force is gone. Sluice Van. Facility captured. Repair docks operational under Confederate authority. A probe droid deployed to the Bothawui system confirms a Confederate carrier group holding position there with what his analysts describe as a defensive posture, which means it's not preparing to strike, it's positioned to intercept the Imperial reinforcements that Palpatine would logically send to retake Sluice Van. He is being anticipated, not just anticipated. He is being anticipated specifically, which means Vader has access to information about Imperial strategic thinking that goes beyond what a good commander might reasonably infer from available intelligence. Palpatine sets down the Bothawi report and thinks about this. Then he thinks about Mas Amedda, who has been Imperial Grand Vizier for 11 days and who knows the outlines of the Empire's strategic posture. He thinks about 3 admirals and a logistics coordinator who attended the Coruscant defense planning session 4 days ago. He thinks about the specific granularity of the Bothawi positioning, not just a choke point, but the choke point for that particular reinforcement route, which was only finalized in planning documents the day before yesterday. There is someone in his command structure who is not in his command structure. The rage is still cold. If anything, it is colder now, because it has found a specific object. He opens a channel to Intelligence Director Mas Glory. I want a security audit of everyone with access to strategic planning documents in the last 10 days. Full scope. You have until tomorrow morning. A pause. Then, carefully, my Emperor. That would include Moffs, fleet admirals, yes, Palpatine says. It would. Vader receives Admiral Utu's after-action summary at 1400 Raxus local time, and reads it standing in the war room they have built in the Parliament building's former committee chamber, surrounded by holographic displays that show the disposition of his forces across 17 systems. Utu's summary is thorough, direct, and ends with a recommendation he has already been considering: the Fondor shipyards. Quat builds Star Destroyers. Fondor builds capital ships of a different class, older designs, but the facility itself is larger, more hardened, and sits at a hyperspace junction that makes it strategically significant beyond its production capacity. Taking Fondor would give him a manufacturing base in the core, not adjacent to the core, in it. He marks the recommendation approved and sends it back to her before she has finished writing the request for resources below it. He trusts her reads. She has been right consistently enough that the cost of the one time she isn't right is worth the speed gained by not second-guessing the other 9 times. He moves to the next display. There is a battle in the Outer Rim that his forces are winning without needing his attention, which is the ideal condition. It means the droids are executing standing orders effectively, and his command architecture is functioning the way he designed it. He monitors for 60 seconds and moves on. The next display shows the signal intercepts his communications specialist has flagged for his personal review. There are 3. 2 are Imperial military traffic that his analyst decoded in the early hours, confirming his read on the Bothawi route. The third is different, not a military signal but a diplomatic one, routed through a civilian relay that the Empire hasn't thought to monitor yet because it used to be a Trade Federation commercial channel. The signal is addressed to Bail Organa on Alderaan. It is encrypted. His specialist has partially decoded it. The parts that are visible suggest a conversation about the formation of something. An alliance, a network, a political structure for people who have decided they oppose both sides of this war. He reads the partial decrypt twice. He does not mark it for response. He does not alert his intelligence division. He marks it for his own file and moves to the next display. He will think about what Bail Organa is building when he has time to think about it properly. For now there is a war, and the war is in its early window, and the early window will not hold forever. He keeps working. The medical facility is 3 levels below the Parliament building. It was built for Confederate council members, not for their comfort. Exactly, but for the specific kind of discretion that powerful people require when their bodies remind them they are not invincible. The equipment is good. Better than good. The Confederacy spent money here the way governments spend money on things they need but don't want to publicly acknowledge needing. The surgical suite has the quiet, sealed quality of a room designed to contain whatever happens inside it. Vader stands outside it and cannot go in. This is not a decision. It is not strategy, not calculation, not the cold tactical assessment that has governed every hour of the last 3 weeks. It is simpler and worse than any of those things. He is standing in a corridor outside a door and his body will not carry him through it. And he has faced lava and dreadnoughts and the full weight of Palpatine's intelligence apparatus without stopping, and he is stopped here, outside a door, by something that has no name he is willing to say aloud. He knows what is happening on the other side of that door. He has known it was coming. He has had 3 weeks to prepare for it. He has arranged the medical equipment, sourced the staff, 2 droids and a human surgeon who worked for the Confederacy and who understands that the continued operation of his own cardiovascular system is contingent on his discretion. He has thought about this moment in the spaces between tactical displays and supply chain analyses and after-action reports. He has not thought about it enough. There is no amount of thinking that would have been enough. Obi-Wan comes down the corridor at 0300. He doesn't announce himself. He simply appears at Vader's peripheral vision and stops there, leaning against the opposite wall, arms folded, saying nothing. He has gotten better at saying nothing over the past 3 weeks. Or perhaps he always was this good at it, and Vader is only now in a position to notice. They stand on opposite sides of the corridor in silence for a while. "She asked for you," Obi-Wan says finally. Vader doesn't respond. "An hour ago. Before it became too much to ask for anything." Obi-Wan's voice is even. He is working to keep it even, and he is skilled at the work. But Vader can hear what's underneath. "She asked where you were. What did you tell her?" "That you were close." A pause. It wasn't a lie. The corridor hums with the facility's ventilation system. Somewhere above them, 3 levels up, the war room is running on skeleton staff. His standing orders require someone at the displays at all hours. Because Palpatine's forces have been probing the edges of Confederate-held space for 2 weeks, with the particular relentlessness of a man who has accepted that sleep is a resource he cannot afford either. "I don't know how to be in that room," Vader says. He says it the way he says most things he doesn't intend to say. Flatly, without decoration, the words arriving before the decision to say them. Obi-Wan looks at him. No one does. There's no preparation for it. "I watched her die." The corridor absorbs the words without returning them. "I watched her die, and I know exactly how it happens, the specific sequence of it. The moment the light goes, I have carried that knowledge for..." He stops. The calculation of how long he carried it before this timeline exists only in his own mind. And he does not finish the sentence. "I know what can go wrong in that room." "Yes," Obi-Wan says quietly. "And she needs you there anyway." He goes in. The room is white and overlit in the way of medical spaces everywhere. A specific, functional brightness that flattens shadow and makes everything look simultaneously more and less real. The surgical equipment lines the walls. The droids stand at their stations, unobtrusive, quiet. The surgeon is at the periphery, monitoring, not speaking. Padme is on the medical bed at the room's center. She looks at him when he enters. The look is not simple. It contains things that have been accumulating for 3 weeks, the conversation they haven't finished, the future she hasn't agreed to, the specific quality of her relationship with him that has always involved knowing exactly what he is, and choosing her response to that knowledge with full awareness. Her eyes are exhausted and entirely lucid, and she looks at him the way she has always looked at him, which is directly, without flinching, even now. He crosses to her. He does not know what to do with his hands. This is a new problem. His hands have always known what to do, with tools, with controls, with a lightsaber. He stands beside the bed, and she reaches up and takes one of his hands, the human one, and holds it, and the sensation moves through him like current. "You're here," she says. "I'm here," he says. "Good," she says, and her eyes close, and the work continues. Luke arrives first. The droid announces it in the flat, informational tone of medical droids everywhere, designed for accuracy rather than ceremony. Vader hears the words and they do not process immediately. They land somewhere, and he knows they have landed, but the full meaning of them takes a moment to reach him, traveling through some distance that isn't physical. He looks. The child is very small. This is the first thing, a fact that seems obvious in retrospect and is nevertheless shocking in practice. The sheer smallness of a person. The droid places him in the crook of Vader's arm, and he takes the weight of him with his human hand against the back of a head that fits inside his palm, and the Force does something it has never done before. Not in this form, not with this specific quality. The child is luminous, not metaphorically. In the Force, the child burns with a clarity and intensity that Vader has felt in only a handful of beings in his life. His mother, Obi-Wan at his most centered, Padme moments of absolute conviction. In his son, it is simply present, native, the way a star doesn't decide to be bright. The Force flows from the child the way breath flows, without effort, without training, without any of the decades of discipline that such a connection normally requires. Vader stands very still. He is holding his son, and he is afraid to move. Leia arrives 12 minutes later, and she is louder about it, an immediate, declarative announcement of presence. A personality making itself known from the first moment. And Vader looks at his daughter and understands without being told that she is going to be a problem for everyone around her, in the best possible sense, for the rest of her life. He holds them both, one in each arm, and Padme watches him from the bed with eyes that are too tired for the expression in them to be anything other than completely honest. "They look like you," she says. Around the eyes. "They look like you," he says. Around the determination. Something moves across her face. Not quite a smile, something more complicated. Something that acknowledges what the moment is without pretending it exists in isolation from everything surrounding it. "Anakin," she says. Not Vader. The name that belongs to the person holding these children. What happens to them? In whatever you're building, what do they become? He looks at the children. He looks at her. "Safe," he says. "Whatever else." That first. Padme holds his gaze for a long moment. She is evaluating the answer. He knows this. He has always been able to feel her working through information, sorting it, deciding. And he waits because there is nothing else he can do. Because this is the one negotiation he has no leverage in, and no strategy for, and no contingency prepared. "All right," she says finally. "All right." The same words Obi-Wan said on the landing platform on Mustafar. He wonders if she knows that. He wonders if it matters. He stays until both children are sleeping. Then he steps outside back into the corridor, and Obi-Wan is still there, sitting on the floor with his back against the wall, in an attitude of waiting that suggests he intended to stay until someone came out, or morning came. Whichever arrived first. He looks up. Vader leans against the opposite wall and slides down it until he is sitting on the floor as well, his back against the cool surface, his legs extended in front of him, and they sit on opposite sides of the corridor the way they have been sitting on opposite sides of everything for 3 weeks. "A boy and a girl," Vader says. "Yes," Obi-Wan says. The ventilation hums. 3 levels above them, the war room monitors the edges of Confederate space. The galaxy is conducting itself with complete indifference to what just happened in the room behind this door. "They're strong in the Force," Vader says. "I know," Obi-Wan says quietly. "I could feel it from out here." The silence settles between them differently than it has before. Heavier in some ways. Lighter in others. "I won't let anything happen to them," Vader says. He does not say it to Obi-Wan specifically. He says it to the corridor, to the wall, to whatever is listening. A statement made to the universe rather than to any person in it. Obi-Wan says nothing. He doesn't disagree. The twins are 4 months old when Palpatine finds them. Not directly. He is too careful for direct, too patient for the blunt instrument of a frontal assault when a scalpel is available. What he finds, more precisely, is a thread. A single piece of intercepted Confederate intelligence that references a medical facility 3 levels below the Raxus Parliament building, in conjunction with a supply requisition for infant nutrition compounds, and a security rotation that doesn't match the standard parliamentary protection schedule. A thread. He pulls it. The strike comes at 0200 local time, which is a choice, not a coincidence. Vader is in the war room when the alarms begin. He is standing at the central display reviewing Admiral Utu's revised Fondor approach vectors, because Utu revised them at 2300 and marked them urgent and she has not been wrong yet. And then the alarms begin, and the thread from the Fondor display to his conscious attention snaps, and he is already moving before the duty officer finishes the first sentence of the report. Imperial Row Squad, 12 clone commandos, the specific tier of Republic special forces that existed before there was an empire to call them Imperial. The ones who trained for exactly this kind of operation. Surgical, fast, designed for extraction rather than engagement, in and out before a conventional defense can respond. They came in on a civilian freighter that has been sitting in Raxus's commercial docking ring for 9 days, which means the intelligence that placed it there is 9 days old at minimum, which means Palpatine has had a thread for 9 days and has spent 9 days deciding exactly when to pull it. The freighter launched its insertion team at 0153. 9 minutes ago. The facility is 3 levels down. Vader runs. He does not take the lift. He takes the maintenance shaft beside it, dropping 3 levels in the time the lift would have spent opening its doors, and he hits the sublevel corridor at a run and reaches the medical facility's outer door and stops. The door is open. Not forced. The lock mechanism is intact. Someone used a code. He goes through. The corridor inside is lit by emergency strips only. The main lighting is dark, cut by the insertion team's first technical action. The emergency strips paint everything red. 2 of his MagnaGuard units are on the floor at the corridor's bend, and they are not damaged the way things are damaged in firefights, which is to say they are not damaged with blaster scoring or impact marks. They are damaged with lightsabers. Palpatine sent a Jedi. The fact arrives with a cold, specific clarity. Not panic. The emotion is below panic, deeper, more structural. There are not many Jedi left. He has been tracking the ones he knows survived Order 66, tracking them the way you track something dangerous in the dark. And there are not many. But there are some. And one of them is here. 3 levels below him, in the corridor between the outer door and the room where his children are sleeping. He moves. The Jedi is named Ven Keth. Vader will learn this afterward, from the intelligence files. A knight, not a master. Young, skilled. The kind of survivor who lived through Order 66 by being somewhere the clones weren't, and who has spent the months since staying alive through a combination of genuine ability and the specific adaptability of someone who has had every institutional support removed and learned to function without them. Palpatine chose him because he is expendable and capable in that precise combination that makes someone useful for a mission where failure is acceptable as long as the primary objective is achieved. The primary objective is the children, not to harm them. Vader understands this immediately and completely. Palpatine wants them alive, wants them as leverage, wants to do to Vader what Vader has spent 4 months being afraid someone would do. The children are his weakness, and Palpatine has known it since before they were born, and has been waiting for the right thread to pull. Vader finds Ven Keth in the corridor outside the medical suite. The knight is young. Early 30s, perhaps. He is holding his lightsaber, green blade, the color of the Jedi Order's most centered practitioners, and he has a clone commando on either side of him, and 2 more covering the medical suite door, and 4 more in positions down the corridor that any competent tactical mind would recognize as a retreat-covering formation. The clone commandos raise their weapons. Vader kills them, not with his lightsaber. He extends his right hand and the Force moves through it like a system being engaged at full power for the first time in months, not the careful, controlled application he has been using to manage the cortex, not the subtle reaches and adjustments of a man trying not to draw attention, but the full, unqualified weight of the highest midi-chlorian count ever recorded pressing outward in one direction. 6 clone commandos in a corridor leave the floor simultaneously. The walls receive them. The sound is brief and final, and he does not watch it. His eyes are already on Ven Keth, who has not moved, who is standing in the red emergency light with his green blade up and his face doing something complicated. The specific expression of a trained Jedi encountering a Force presence so disproportionate that the training and the reality are briefly in conflict. "Don't," Vader says. Ven Keth holds his position. His blade doesn't waver. Whatever else he is not a coward. "Lord Vader," he says. His voice is steadier than his presence in the Force. "Those children are mine," Vader says. "They're Force-sensitive. You know what that means, what they could be used for. By you, by Palpatine, by anyone with enough power to take them." "Yes," Vader says. "I know exactly what it means." He takes 1 step forward. The knight attacks. He is good. This also needs to be said plainly. Ven Keth is a genuinely skilled duelist, trained in a tradition that produced the finest saber fighters in galactic history, and he fights with the specific ferocity of someone who believes completely in what he is doing. He comes fast, combinations designed to probe and redirect rather than overpower, using the corridor's geometry to limit Vader's ability to use telekinesis without risking structural damage. He lasts 40 seconds. Not because Vader is stronger, though he is overwhelmingly in a way that stopped being personal and became mathematical sometime in the first 5 seconds. He lasts 40 seconds because Vader is not trying to kill him immediately, and the effort of not killing him while also not being killed requires more precision than simply ending it. On the 38th second, Ven Keth attempts a move that requires him to commit his full weight forward. Vader lets him commit, steps aside, takes the blade hand at the wrist, not severing, controlling, and drives him into the wall with the force and holds him there. 3 centimeters off the floor, lightsaber arm pinned, the green blade pointed at the ceiling and going nowhere. Ven Keth makes one attempt to pull free. Then he goes still. "You survived Order 66, Vader says. He is not breathing hard. You have continued to survive for 4 months in a galaxy that is actively trying to kill you. You are here because someone pointed you at a target and gave you a mission that someone your age and skill level should not have survived." The knight looks at him. "Palpatine used you," Vader says. "He sent you here because losing you costs him nothing." "You killed them," Ven Keth says. His voice has changed. The steadiness is still there, but something underneath it has cracked slightly. "The council members. The Jedi in the temple." "You, yes," Vader says. "I did." The word lands between them and stays there. "Then why?" the knight says. "Are we still talking?" Vader looks at him for a long moment. "Because I need to know how he found the medical facility," he says. "And because you're going to tell me." He does, not immediately. It takes time. And Vader gives him the time because the information is more important than the satisfaction of speed. And what emerges over the next 40 minutes, in the red-lit corridor while his children sleep on the other side of a door and the Magna Guard units run diagnostics on the systems Keth's blade disrupted, is the shape of a 9-day intelligence operation that started with a supply, manifest and ended here. The leak is not a person. It is a process, a supply routing protocol that Tech Marin designed for efficiency rather than security, that cross-referenced infant nutrition compounds through a civilian logistics channel that Imperial intelligence has been monitoring since the early days of the Confederate war economy. Marin will fix it before morning. He will be appalled, in the specific way of logisticians confronting the security implications of their own elegant solutions. After, Vader stands in the medical suite doorway and looks at the twins sleeping in the way that children sleep, when the world has not yet taught them to be afraid of the dark, completely, without reservation, with the absolute trust of people who do not yet know that trust is a choice. The knowledge sits in his chest like something without a name. He walks to Padden's room. She is awake. Of course she is. The alarms, the sounds, the specific quality of the silence after. She is sitting up in bed and she looks at him when he appears in the doorway, and she reads the answer to every question on his face before he says a word. "They're all right," he says, "both of them." Unharmed, she closes her eyes, opens them. "This is what it is," she says. "It is not a question. It is not an accusation. It is a woman who has spent her life in politics and war arriving at the precise, clear-eyed statement of a reality she is choosing to inhabit with full awareness." "Yes," he says. "Then we need somewhere safer than 3 levels underground." She holds his gaze. Somewhere he can't find a thread to pull. He looks at her, at the specific quality of her, the way she meets catastrophe by immediately converting it into the next problem to solve, the way she always has, the way that has always been one of the things he loves most and finds most difficult about her. "I have somewhere in mind," he says. He goes to find Obi-Wan. The Armada arrives without announcement. This is deliberate. Admiral Utu spent 6 weeks arguing against the traditional Confederate doctrine of broadcasting approach vectors to maximize psychological impact. And Vader agreed with her on the 3rd sentence of the argument. because psychological impact is worth nothing against a commander who uses the warning time to redeploy his defenses, and Palpatine is not a commander who wastes warning time. They drop out of hyperspace at 0347, 200 vessels emerging from jump simultaneously across a dispersal pattern that covers every viable approach corridor to Coruscant at once. Not a fleet. An enclosure. The planet doesn't see them coming, it sees them already there, already in position, already executing the first phase of an engagement plan that Vader and U2 spent 3 months building in the Parliament War Room, while the rest of the war bought them the time to build it correctly. The Imperial defensive perimeter responds in 40 seconds. Good. Vader noted this in his operational plan as a benchmark. A perimeter response under 60 seconds means the garrison is professional and alert, which means the engagement will cost more than it would against a complacent defense, which means he needs to be precise. A fast defense is also a defense that made its decisions fast, which means the decisions were the ones already planned, which means Palpatine's contingencies are now in motion exactly as anticipated. Vader knows his contingencies. He built 3 of them into his own plan specifically to be seen. The flagship is a Providence-class dreadnought that he has not named. Names are for things you intend to keep, and flagships have a way of not surviving the battles they're built around. He stands on the command deck watching the tactical display and feels the battle in the Force the way he always has, not just as data, not just as geometry, but as a living pressure, a weight of intention and fear and concentrated will pressing from every direction at once. 20,000 clone troopers are dying to hold this perimeter. He can feel them, not individually, not at this scale, but collectively, the way you feel a crowd's emotional state from its edges. He does not let himself feel it for more than a moment. There is no version of this that doesn't cost something. Phase 2, he says. The Confederate carrier groups assigned to Phase 2 have been holding at the dispersal pattern's inner edge, masked by the larger vessels in front of them, and they move now, 37 carriers releasing their full complement of vulture droids and tri-fighters in a coordinated launch that puts approximately 4,000 fighter-scale craft into Coruscant's upper atmosphere in under 3 minutes. The Imperial starfighter response is immediate and competent. It is not sufficient. The mathematics of 4,000 against 800 are not mathematics that skill corrects for, and Vader watches the fighter engagement with the cold attention of someone who designed it to be exactly this uneven, who spent 3 weeks telling Utu that the carrier complement was the most important variable in the entire operation, who understood that Coruscant's defense grid was built around the assumption that the Clone Wars fleet it was defending against was the one that peaked at the Battle of Coruscant 3 years ago, and not the one that has been incorporating captured Imperial repair facilities for 6 months. The defense grid begins to fail at its northern node first, then the eastern approach corridor, then, in quick succession, the 2 secondary nodes that were covering the gaps created by the first 2 failures, because Vader designed the failure sequence to create exactly those gaps and position exactly those secondary nodes to respond to them. The channel to the planet's surface opens. He leads the atmospheric assault himself. This was not in U2's plan. It was not, technically, in his plan either. The operational documents describe this phase as command ship atmospheric insertion, which is accurate, but deliberately imprecise in the way that plans written by the person who will execute them sometimes are. Utu noticed when she read it. She didn't argue. She has learned, over 6 months, to identify the category of decision that arguing will not change. The sensation of atmospheric entry in a capital ship is not subtle. The hull groans. The viewports show nothing but orange plasma sheath for 90 seconds, the friction of a 200-meter vessel forcing its way through a layer of air that was not designed to receive it. On the decks below, the structural stress indicators are running numbers that the ship's original designers would find alarming. Vader watches them and calculates the margin with the same attention he gives tactical displays. The margin is sufficient. The plasma clears. Coruscant spreads out below, the endless city, surface to horizon in every direction. 200 levels of civilization laid out in the specific way of something that grew without ever being fully planned, the organic result of 1,000,000 years of people building on top of what other people built before them. He has seen this view before. He saw it for the first time as a 9-year-old boy arriving from Tatooine and finding, in the sheer scale of it, A kind of proof that the universe contained things he hadn't imagined yet. He doesn't allow himself to look at it that way now. He gives the order. The Imperial Palace sits at Coruscant's geographical center, elevated above the surrounding cityscape on a foundation that goes down 40 levels and is built from materials that were already ancient when the Republic was young. It is not a delicate building. It was designed, by whoever designed it in whatever era it was first built, with the specific aesthetic of a structure that intends to still be standing after whatever comes next. The flagship hits it at a 17-degree angle on the eastern face. The impact is not an accident. Vader calculated the angle across 6 separate structural assessments of the palace's foundation layout, looking for the vector that would penetrate the outer wall deeply enough to deposit the vessel inside the building's defensive perimeter, while leaving the throne room section, 300 meters northwest of impact, structurally intact. Intact enough. The goal is not demolition. The goal is breach. The impact sound is enormous. Not heard, felt. A vibration that moves through the hull and through the floor of the command deck, and through the body of everyone standing on it. A physical event so large that the nervous system receives it before the ears do, before the brain names it. The flagship stops moving. Systems across the board are red or dark. The structural integrity of the forward third of the ship is compromised in the specific, expected ways that Vader's calculations projected. The drives are gone. The command deck viewports show a wall of durasteel and ruin, the palace's eastern wing receiving them the way a wall receives a fist, damaged, not destroyed, reshaped rather than demolished. Good engineering teams to hull breach points, Vader says. His voice is the same as it always is. Magna Guard Vanguard, forward, he steps out of the wreckage into the palace. The eastern wing is dark, which the emergency lighting partially corrects. The corridor he emerges into is old, the bones of the building showing through the breach his ship cut. Layers of construction visible in the exposed cross-section the way geological strata are visible in a cliff face. The palace has been rebuilt and expanded so many times that the original structure exists only as a foundation and some internal walls, and those internal walls are thick and old and clearly built by people who thought in terms of centuries. Klaxons, somewhere deep in the building, the emergency systems are doing what emergency systems do, generating noise to replace the function that has been destroyed. The remaining Imperial Guard units in this section respond in under 2 minutes. They are Royal Guards, the crimson-armored personal protection detail that Palpatine built from the best of the Senate Guard. Trained specifically for close-quarter defense of the Imperial person and his immediate environment. They are good. They are, in the context of what they are walking toward, inadequate. The Magna Guard Vanguard meets them in the corridor. Vader walks through the engagement without stopping. This is a choice, not callousness, but efficiency. And also the specific statement he intends this entrance to make. He has a vanguard for a reason. He has droids for a reason. He reserves his own hands for the things that require them. And 6 Royal Guards in a corridor do not require them. And Palpatine is 300 meters northwest, and every second spent here is a second given to a man who uses seconds the way other men use years. He walks. Behind him the klaxons continue. Ahead of him the corridor stretches toward the throne room section, lit in emergency red, the palace's ancient bones around him, a building that has stood through 1,000 years of galactic history, now holding its breath around the thing moving through it. The Magna Guards keep pace at his flanks. The last Imperial defenders in the approach corridor see them coming and hold their position, and Vader notes this without breaking stride, notes it the way he noted Commander Arl in the after-action report. The specific quality of people who hold their ground when the math says not to. The quality that deserves acknowledgement, even when it cannot be rewarded. He reaches the throne room doors. They are sealed. Magnetically locked, 3 separate redundant systems, built to withstand a sustained assault from outside. He puts his hand on the seam between them and pushes with the force. The doors open. The throne room is lit. This is the first thing. That in a building running on emergency power, with half its eastern wing compressed around the hull of a Confederate dreadnought. The throne room is fully lit. Every fixture at full output, the high ceiling visible, the long approach to the throne itself illuminated with the particular deliberate brightness of a room whose occupant decided that whatever happened next would not happen in the dark. Palpatine is standing, not at the throne, behind it, in the space between the throne's back and the curved viewport that looks out over Coruscant's skyline, now partially obscured by smoke, and the distant fire of the fleet engagement still running in the upper atmosphere. He is in his Emperor's robes, his hands at his sides, and he is watching Vader cross the threshold with an expression that contains several things simultaneously, none of them simple. The Magna Guards enter behind Vader and fan out. Palpatine looks at them the way you look at something you intend to address shortly. Then he looks at Vader. "You've redecorated," he says pleasantly. "The eastern wing in particular." Vader stops 20 meters out. The distance is not deference. It is the specific gap that a man who has spent 2 decades fighting alongside Darth Sidious understands as the minimum safe engagement distance. The range at which Force lightning requires a half-second to cross, which is enough time to react, barely, if you are already moving when it fires. He knows this, because he has seen Palpatine use it. He has seen it used on enemies and on subordinates who disappointed him, and once, early in Vader's apprenticeship, on Vader himself as a demonstration of what disappointment looked like from the other side. He was 22 years old the first time. He is not 22 years old now. "Send your machines away," Palpatine says. The pleasantness is gone. What's underneath it is not rage. It is something more fundamental. The register of a man who has decided that whatever performance is required, this moment does not require one. "This conversation is between us." "It isn't a conversation," Vader says. Palpatine looks at him for a long moment. Then he raises both hands, and the Force lightning comes. Not a warning, not a demonstration. Not the graduated escalation of a man who wants to negotiate. Full output, immediately the kind of sustained discharge that killed the Jedi in the Chancellor's office on the day the Empire was born. Vader's hand comes up. He catches it. Not with a blade, with his bare hand, the human one. The one that still has nerve endings and skin and the specific vulnerability of a biological limb. He catches it and holds it the way you hold a live wire, feeling the current try to find ground through him, redirecting it through the Force into the floor at his feet, scorching the stone in a line that traces the energy's path outward to nothing. The effort is not trivial. His arm shakes with it. His teeth are together. Palpatine's eyes change. Not surprise. He is past surprise, has burned through it already in some private moment before Vader walked through the door. What moves through his expression is something more honest than surprise. The specific recalibration of a man who built a weapon and is only now measuring its full caliber. He pushes harder. Vader pushes back. The current between them is visible, a sustained arc of blue-white energy bridging the gap, lighting the throne room in a third quality of light that belongs to neither of them, casting both their shadows in multiple directions simultaneously. The smell of ozone and scorched stone fills the room. Vader takes one step forward. Palpatine releases the lightning and draws his saber. The blade is red, which is not a surprise, and it is in his hand with a speed that is also not a surprise. He has been practicing for 50 years, and the speed is not reflexive. It is deliberate, every motion he makes in a duel being a chosen motion rather than an automatic one. This is why he is dangerous. Not because he moves faster than thought, but because every movement he makes has been thought about more carefully than the movement it's countering. He comes forward, and the throne room becomes a different kind of space, smaller, more immediate, the long ceremonial distance between entrance and throne compressed into the close geometry of 2 people trying to kill each other. Vader ignites his own blade. The red blades meet. The sound is the specific crash of kyber crystals at resonant proximity, a harmonic that travels through both hilts and both sets of hands, and both bodies. A vibration so deep it reads as physical pressure rather than sound. Palpatine is fast. Vader expected fast. He prepared for fast. He did not prepare, because preparation was not possible, for the specific quality of fighting someone who taught him, who shaped the vocabulary of his combat technique in the years when it was being formed. Who knows where his weight goes when he commits to a right-side combination, and where his guard opens when he's pushing with the Force simultaneously. Palpatine knows exactly how he fights. He knows because he built exactly how Vader fights. The first exchange lasts 6 seconds. Vader takes a graze on his left shoulder. The blade passes through the outer layer of his clothing and he feels the heat of it, nothing more. But he feels it. Palpatine takes nothing. The second exchange, Vader ends by throwing the throne. The Force reaches back 20 meters, finds the throne's mass. Considerable, the thing is built from old stone and reinforced durasteel. It has not moved in 30 years. And moves it. Not throws, precisely, launches, at an angle calculated to force Palpatine laterally rather than impact directly, because a direct throw Palpatine will simply cut through. And lateral force means lateral movement means a half-second of repositioning. Palpatine cuts through it. He cuts through it moving sideways at the same time, which is the answer Vader modeled as most likely and prepared for, and he is already in the space Palpatine moves into, driving forward with his full weight and the Force behind him. And Palpatine's counter is a burst of lightning at point-blank range that Vader takes on his blade at the cost of being driven back 2 meters. His boots score lines in the scorched stone. He stops himself. The room is wrecked. The throne is rubble. 3 of the Magna Guards are down. He didn't see exactly when, but they're down. Crumpled in the specific way of chassis that have been through a Force lightning discharge powerful enough to fuse their primary systems. 900 years of Sith learning concentrated in 65 years of body, and Palpatine used it on his droids like punctuation. The remaining 2 Magna Guards move forward. Palpatine kills them without taking his eyes off Vader. Your machines, he says, and his breathing is elevated but controlled, are not the variable that matters in this room. No, Vader says. They're not. He reaches out. Not for Palpatine. For the viewport. The curved transparent steel behind Palpatine is 4 centimeters thick, rated for pressure differential and micro-impact, not for the specific Force-assisted shearing force that Vader applies to its upper mounting brackets simultaneously from both sides. The viewport doesn't break. It holds. Mostly. But it shifts, the frame deforming. And the sound of Coruscant's atmosphere entering through the stress fractures in the upper seal fills the room. Palpatine turns half a degree toward the sound. Half a degree is enough. Vader closes the distance. He takes the saber hand at the wrist and applies force, not the force, the mechanical leverage of his own body and grip, twisting inward against the joint's natural rotation until the saber falls. Palpatine's free hand comes up with lightning at contact range, and Vader takes it on his chest, on his face, through his body, and does not release the wrist. The current moves through him. He does not fall. He has taken worse. He was burned alive on Mustafar in the life that didn't happen. Burned down to the minimum viable structure of a person, and he has carried that knowledge in his body as a kind of measurement ever since. A knowledge of exactly how much he can absorb before the threshold. This is below the threshold. He keeps moving forward, driving Palpatine back toward the wall, and Palpatine is still fighting, still generating, still calculating, still the most dangerous mind in the room, but he has no blade, and the distance is 0, and at 0 distance the lightning advantage collapses, because the energy finds both of them. The wall receives Palpatine. Vader's hands close. This is the part that takes the longest and the shortest time simultaneously. There is no saber in his hand. He put it away between the viewport and the wall, at some moment he did not consciously decide on, some physical instinct that understood before his mind confirmed it, that this is not how this ends. Not with a weapon. Not with the tools of the tradition Palpatine built him in. With his hands. The human one and the one that replaced the human one. Both of them. Palpatine looks at him. Not afraid. The eyes of a man who has lived 65 years and constructed the conditions of his own death the same way he constructed everything else, with full awareness of what he was building. Something moves through his expression in the last seconds. Not regret. Not peace. The specific look of a man who is still, at the very end, analyzing. What do you become? Palpatine says, without an enemy? Vader doesn't answer. The silence after is absolute. He stands in it for a long time. The Emperor is dead on the floor of his throne room. The room is wrecked. Coruscant's air moves through the fractured viewport, carrying smoke and the distant sound of the battle in the upper atmosphere, beginning to change in pitch. Fewer engines, more space. The sonic signature of an engagement resolving. He does not feel what he expected to feel. He doesn't feel what he feared he would feel either. He feels the weight of his own hands. He stands very still and looks at the viewport, and at the smoke rising from somewhere below, and at the city that stretches beyond it in every direction, the city that is now, as of this moment, his. He doesn't move for a long time. Outside, the fleet engagement ends. The Empire falls. The galaxy learns what happened the way galaxies learn things, imperfectly, in pieces, through channels that distort even as they transmit. The HoloNet carries it first, because the HoloNet is what it is, a system built for the dissemination of official reality, and official reality has simply changed hands. Confederate communications specialists take the relay stations in sequence over 72 hours. Not violently, mostly. The station operators are technical workers, not soldiers. And the difference between broadcasting imperial programming and broadcasting whatever replaces it is, to most of them, a question of which authorization codes arrive in the morning queue. The codes that arrive belong to Vader. The first broadcast under the new authority is not a speech. It is a statement, 11 sentences, read by a synthesized voice over a still image of the Confederate crest being replaced on screen by something new. Not the Empire's cog, not the Confederacy's design, but a different thing entirely. Geometric. Severe. Built in the 3 days between the siege and this moment by a designer on Raxus, who was given no brief, except not those. The statement says the war is over. It says the imperial government has been dissolved. It says the new authority will make itself known through its actions rather than its promises, and that the first action is the immediate cessation of all military operations in every theater simultaneously. 11 sentences. Across the galaxy, people read them and do not know what to believe, which is the correct response to 11 sentences, and the main reason the 11th sentence instructs them to wait and watch. On Alderaan, Leia Organa reads the statement twice. He is in his private office, the one that looks out over Aldera at dawn, and he reads the statement and then he sets it down and looks at the city, and stays very still for a long time. Around him, the thing he has been building for months, the network, the quiet alliance, the structure for people who found themselves opposed to both sides of a war between two Siths, holds its breath. He does not disband it. He does not activate it either. He puts it in a drawer, metaphorically, and locks the drawer, and thinks about what it means to live in a galaxy where Palpatine is dead, but the man who killed him commands 1 trillion machines and controls every HoloNet relay and has just told 11 billion systems to wait and watch. He thinks about this for a long time. Then he goes to find his wife, because whatever comes next, this morning is still this morning. And his daughter is still asleep in the next room, and some things are more important than politics, even when politics has just rewritten everything. Vader sits on the throne. It is not Palpatine's throne. That is rubble. Somewhere in the wreckage of a throne room on Coruscant that his engineering teams are still clearing, 3 weeks after the siege. This throne is in the Parliament building on Raxus, in the chamber where the Confederate Council sat until he killed them, which was the first act of this story and seems now like something that happened to a different version of events entirely. It is not a comfortable throne. Confederate design philosophy ran toward function over ceremony, and this chair reflects that, solid, unornamented, built for a governing body rather than a monarch. He has not replaced it with something more appropriate to what he is now. He has not thought about it. Thinking about furniture requires a category of attention he has not been able to locate. He sits in it, and the droids stand around the chamber walls, and the chamber is very quiet. This is the thing about the droids that he understood. In the war room, in the abstract, that they do not require anything from him, that they will stand at their posts indefinitely without food or rest or reassurance or conversation, that they are the one army in history that will not eventually need him to justify himself to them. This is also the thing about the droids that he is only now, sitting in the quiet, beginning to understand in the other direction. They will never tell him he is wrong. They will never push back, never question, never look at him the way Utu looked at him when he overruled her on the Fondor timeline and turned out to be correct. The look that said, "I disagree and I am telling you I disagree because I respect you enough to do so." They will never ask how he is, not because they are prohibited from asking, but because the answer is not a variable they are equipped to process. He has built the one army in the galaxy that will never leave him. He is beginning to understand why that isn't the same thing as not being alone. The intelligence networks find nothing. This is the report that arrives on the 42nd day, delivered by his communications specialist in the careful tone of someone who has verified and re-verified information before bringing it. And the information is, Padma Amidala is not on Coruscant. She is not on Naboo. She is not in any Confederate-held system, not in any former Republic core world. Not in any location his droid intelligence apparatus has been able to confirm through surveillance, informant networks, or signal interception. She is not findable. Neither are the twins. Neither is Obi-Wan Kenobi, which is the detail that tells him everything he needs to know about how this happened. That she didn't run. Exactly. That this was not panic. This was a plan, constructed in the weeks between the medical suite conversation and the siege, built by two people who are very good at making things happen quietly. He sits with this information for a long time. He does not dispatch additional search units. He does not escalate the intelligence priority. He makes one note in his personal file, encrypted to his own cipher. They are alive. They are together. He closes the file. The droid networks cover the unknown regions in expanding search patterns for another 60 days. Cold trails. Ghost signals. A ship that might have been the right configuration passing through a relay station in the Outer Rim 11 weeks ago, flagged by an algorithm, investigated by a probe droid, resolved as a different vessel entirely. A settlement on a planet whose name he has known since childhood, empty when his scouts arrive, recently occupied by the evidence of it, 3 months vacated by the timing of the vegetation regrowth and the cleared ground around it. He reads each report. He files each one. He does not stop looking. He does not stop. Because stopping would require a decision, would require the specific, deliberate act of choosing to accept the shape of this, and he is not there. He is not sure he will ever be there. He is, at present, a man who conquered a galaxy and cannot find 3 people and 2 infants in it, and the arithmetic of this is not lost on him. The droids search because he told them to search. They will keep searching because he told them to keep searching. They will report their findings because that is what they do. None of this will produce what he is looking for. And he knows it, and he keeps looking anyway, because the alternative is stillness, and stillness is the thing he cannot afford. Somewhere in the galaxy, not the unknown regions, somewhere closer, somewhere ordinary. A place chosen for its ordinariness. Padme is putting Luke to sleep. This is the image his intelligence networks cannot produce for him, because it is not the kind of information that appears in manifests or signal intercepts or probe droid visual surveys. It is domestic. Private. The specific texture of a life being lived in the spaces between the things that get recorded. Obi-Wan is in the next room. He has taken to cooking, which is new, which Padme teases him about with the particular affection of people who have survived something together and arrived at the other side still able to find things funny. He is not a gifted cook. He is persistent, which produces results eventually. Leia is asleep already. She operates on her own schedule and always has. With the calm certainty of someone who decided from the first hour that the world would arrange itself around her and has been largely proven correct. They are not happy. Exactly. Happy is not quite the right word for the condition of people living quietly in the shadow of a galaxy-spanning power that is looking for them. But they are together, and the children are well, and outside whatever window this room has, the night sky is doing what night skies do everywhere, which is be full of stars without any particular concern for what's happening underneath them. Padme thinks about him sometimes. She does not think about him, which is not the same as thinking about him in the way that means she has decided. She holds the question the way she has always held difficult things. carefully without forcing resolution, with the particular patience of a woman who spent her life making decisions that required more information than was available, and learned to sit with uncertainty without letting it make her decisions for her. She looks at Luke's face, and she thinks about the eyes, and she doesn't let herself finish the thought. She turns off the light. On Raxus, in the Parliament chamber, the droids stand at their posts. Vader sits. The chamber is quiet in the specific way it is always quiet now. Completely, mechanically, the absence of sound that belongs to a room full of things that do not breathe. No advisors murmuring at the periphery. No aides moving between stations. No sound of governance happening in adjacent rooms, because governance is happening, but it doesn't sound like anything. It looks like data moving between droid processors in frequencies below human hearing. He rules 1 trillion machines. Outside the Parliament windows, Raxus does what it does. The capital city conducting its life. The people in it going about the specific, irreducible business of being people, which continues regardless of who is sitting in the large chair in the building at the city's center and what they are thinking about. He sits. He does not look at the window. He had everything Palpatine had and more, and he lost the 3 things that were not Palpatine's to take. He commanded the largest army in galactic history, and could not make a single person in it stay, because they wanted to. He sits in the silence of his own victory, and watches it mean nothing, and the droids stand at the walls with their yellow optical sensors and their patient, tireless readiness. And the night comes down over Raxus the way night comes down everywhere, without asking permission, without caring what it finds. He had built the one army in the galaxy that could never leave him, and in the silence of his throne room, he finally understood why. Let us know what you'd like to see next. The end.